ko ai ke te perangi ki te tīmata.
Tēnā tīreti pēr.
Yeah. Good. I'm just going to get everyone to introduce themselves, and I guess one question to start off with, in one word, if you can keep it to one word, why is it that you want to represent the electorate that you're standing in?
Kia ora tātou, is ko Merepeka Raukawa-Tait, ahau, no te waka o te aroa. This is my home, this is the place that I love, and if you're asking for one word as to why I want to represent Rotorua in the general electorate seat, it is because I add value. We add value as Māori.
Ai.
Kia ora tātou, tēnā tātou I tēnei rā. Mihi atu rā anō ki tēnei tikuna e tūnei. Mihi atu rā anō ki Pāti Whakaue. Karanga mai mihi mai nei rātau ko te mōpunu. He uri anu hoki no ariari te rangi, no roro I te rangi. Kei ho mai rā, kia te amohau, ane tūnei. No reira, kai te mihi atu rā kia tātou I tēnei rā. Ka tiake, ko Rawiri Waititi toku ingoa, ko au te mema pāre mata, mo te Waiariki, I tēnei wā, kai te tūma te Pāti Māori. So, I'm the current sitting MP for the Waiariki. I've had one term, feels like a bloody long time. But it's been an absolute pleasure representing what I think is the richest, most Māori electorate you can find. And if you look at its boundaries, mai ngā kuri a whare ki Tihiro, mai make tū ki Tongariro, you can see how very Māori it is. And so it's been an absolute pleasure to represent our rohe, and the many waka in the rohe. Mā tātua te aroa, takitimu, tainui, nikutere, tauira mai te whiti. So, kona hoki taku mea, and why I'm standing is we want to be able to create an Aotearoa home. And an Aotearoa home ensures that the centre and the core of this Aotearoa home is driven by te tikiti o Waitai. Hei oranga mo a mokopuna decisions. So kona hoki te koru I tēnei rā, ni atu rā nuki ki wēnei tokorua ngā whanaunga nei, me tēnei kōka e whawhai nei mō Rotorua. Kia ora tātou.
Tēnā rana koutou taupoi mihi atu whakoutou I tēnei ahiahi mō tēnei kaupapa I mihi atu ki mana whina ngā whakaue mihi atu kia koutou. Mihi atu ki ngā whānau uri mai nei mō tēnei kaupapa e mihi atu ki ngā kaupono mō te Waiariki. Ko Toni Boynton taku ingoa, te tautoko pāpā no maunga pōhatu, ko tauranga roa te awa, ko tuako me tawanui ngā marae, ko tamakaimoana me te whakahatāne ngā hapu, ko tūhoi tamakaimoana ngā te awa, te aroa ngā iwi.
Hey, good. You should be the first one.
Ina tautaku māma, ko whakatau te maunga, ko kariri kura te moana, ko te patu kirikiri te hapu, ko Roma te marae, ko te raroa me ngā te kahu me ngā pui nui tonu. It is also a privilege for me to be able to stand mō te Waiariki, mō te Pāti Reipa. The word, I think you asked for one word, and that would be I roto I taku nākau aroha. Aroha mō ki tētahi mō a tātou mokapuna, mō a tātou tikuna, mō a tātou iwi katoa. Ko te mea nui, ko te aroha. The aroha to have the kaha and the strength to stand before you, first off, but also being able to have the aroha to stand in front of, at the forefront of the front line like my whanauna here, I roto I te wharepaurata. To be able to influence and have a say in the policies and the legislations that impact on our whānau each and every day. To be able to fight against injustice and discrimination, particularly against our whānau, and particularly now during election time, where we are seeing our whānau's aroha for each other being weaponised in that whare, but also against ourselves across the motu. And we can't stand for that. And as a mama of four tamariki who are now a lot older, there was one stage where I had 4 or 5 years and under. I know what it's like to struggle being a mama on the DPP, being left with $40 a week to live off. And I was under positive policies through Labour, in which I was able to go to training incentive allowance that allowed me to start my pathway of study. And in years to come, I was able to graduate with my bachelor degree. While still raising those boys who are all older now, and fortunately they had an awesome kura here at Rotorua that I was able to support them to go through. I also know what it's like to struggle, and we've had the support of parties across the board when we fought for the right to have Māori ward seats in local government. I was part of being able to support a lot of our whanaunga across the mutu who signed an 11,000 signature petition to take down to Parliament to support the establishment of Māori wards. And it is because of that effort I want to be able to ensure that we keep that good word, so that other parties who are threatening to remove those wards cannot be empowered to do that. So my word, aroha, is aroha.
And just a disclaimer before you start, Charles. She's my cousin, so.
Yeah.
Aroha.
I sort of guessed that with the
Well,
last name.
he's my cousin, you're my cousin.
Yeah. Real cousins up here.
And just to disclaim, I didn't get the questions either beforehand.
Neither did we. O tira, tēnā tātou koe hui mai nei, raro i te tūnui o tēnei whare rangatira o te aroa. Tēnei te mihi ki a tātou katoa. Ki te kaunga e tau nei, hapa mātu. Nō ki te maringi nui, ki te noho i tēnei pairua tapu, i wainga nui e nei rangatira. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi ki a koutou. Kia koe Rawiri, nā mihi nui kia koe. Me mihi kātika kia koe. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi ki. So yeah, ko ai tēnei tore kai huruhuru, e tuake nei. This flash word tore kai huruhuru is in other words as a novice. Yeah, and Rawiri here is talking about Aotearoa hau, o anei te hoi ho hau. Anei te hoi ho hau. So you know, here I am, the hoi ho hau standing here before you. And one word, well 2 words really, but one word is whakamana, empowerment. Empowerment. But if I combine it more concisely, whakamana whānau, empowering our whānau, empowering families. Because I believe, man, we look at the destitution that is around our people that are marginalised, the deprivation that's going on, you know, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see our whānau struggling in a crisis. Because let's be honest, this nation is in a crisis. We've got a homelessness crisis, we've got a law and order crisis, our health is a crisis, homelessness crisis all over the bloody place. But we need to empower. And there's been too much dependency that's been created. The policies that have been created are policies that lead to dependency. Empowerment is what we need, to empower our people to become independent and interdependent. You know, ko au ko koe, ko koe, ko au ko tāua tāua. We are one people, and we need to work together for the betterment of our people. So a little bit about who I am. I come from the centre of the earth, Te Teko. And me mihi ki tōku pāpā, e takoto ana ki tūteo, ngā maihi, ko wāka vērkau tērā pāpā oku. So me mihi ki a rātai. Me te tūpāpaku e tatu mai, e haramai ana ki tono oku, ki te pākira oki. So nō reira, wā tātou nei mate, me mihi kātika. But yeah, so I come from Te Teko. My kuia, my kreua, worked hard on the land, growing kamo, kānga, merengi, and that was us. We would go up to Auckland every Saturday and sell the produce at the Otara market. That was me growing up. But I went to Te Teko school for a while, but then I moved away and went to live with my mum. I never had a father figure in my life. My father was never there. I grew up with no father. So I know what it's like to have fatherlessness. I also grew up in extreme poverty. So I understand our people. But I am a statistic that has broken the mold. Really, I shouldn't be standing here today, but here I am. As a tohu to our people that we can overcome and that we can get through. And we can break free. There is a way, there is hope. And so empowering our whānau is what I am about. I've been a teacher for 20 years, especially in Kurukapa Māori, here in Ngāti Whakauru. All my tamariki have gone through Te Kohanga Reo, Kurukapa Māori, and now my 18-year-old son is in his final year, ready to take on the world. Nōna te ao. Ko kai e te mero. So here I stand, you know, I'm really passionate about our people. For the past almost 2 years, I've been working on the ground in the community with the homelessness. So I've had the opportunity to work with our people. So, you know, I'm no politician. I'm just the person here that wants to try and make a difference for our people. And regardless of the result in 8 weeks, I still win. Because I've stood. I've stood for my beliefs, I've stood for my people, and I've stood for what I believe in. Nō reirei te iwi, tēnei ahau, e mihi ana, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora koutou. So those are our 4 candidates from our Division Party, Te Pāti Reipa, and then our 2 Māori candidates. And today I'm going to be asking them questions that have been sent to them, well, that the PSA members want them to answer. So I'm going to start off with our first pātai, and it's around te tiriti. And if elected, will your party progress the principles of te tiriti, especially when it comes to supporting Māori workers, in their mahi? And I'll I'll start with me.
Kia ora. And I will get around to answering that, but I did stick to the one word that you asked. So I am just going to give you just a little bit of background, because it is important. Because I'm standing here in Rotorua, and I'm hard up against it because I'm standing for the general seat for Te Pāti Māori. So I was a Rotorua Lakes councillor for 11 years, voted by the community. 12 years on the DH board, voted by the community. 7 years for the Rotorua Trust, voted by the community. So it should be no surprise to any of you that I'm standing in the general seat. No surprise. And the fact is, and I know the issues that impact Rotorua. I know about the homeless. I know about the fact that many of our young children are not in education, training and employment. I know the difficulties with getting access to justice in Rotorua. So I know all of those things. But the one thing I say to our people all the time, we are stunning. We are stunning. Our children are beautiful. You know, we have unlimited potential. And we must continue to say that, because so often we don't hear it. We hear that, well, the leader of the opposition called beneficiaries bottom feeders. And he wants to be the leader, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. You can't have that. Everybody in New Zealand is important. And we must say to our children that you are loved. And this is the time also for stunning, fearless Māori leadership to step up. And we can step up in our family and be the stunning leader in our families, in our schools, in our business, and in politics as well. I can tell you our issues, if we're not at the top table, our issues are never given the same weight of consideration as Pākehā issues. I know that, having been here in council for 11 years. So what I'm saying is, I'm putting my name up alongside other good candidates, but I know the added value that I add. And I look at things with a different lens, with a lens that is more inclusive. We have migrant families who have come here to live in Rotorua because they think this is a beautiful place to come, play, work and stay. So I want them to feel included as well. But I want our people to know that in the land of their tupuna, this is their future, this is their responsibility, and it is their right to stand tall and be included in the community and make sure that they're there at the decision-making table. So hence I am standing for the general seat of Rotorua. Kia ora.
When it comes to te tiriti,
We are, Te Pāti Māori is a treaty-based party, absolutely. And we want to make sure that we are treated as the same way as everybody else in terms of, opportunities.
Yes.
But when our Māori men continue to die 8 years earlier than Pākehā, then there's something wrong there. So there's a real mismatch and there's a real imbalance. And so we've got to look at everything. And I know, particularly that Debbie and Rawiri, I love it when they're on the floor of the House. I love it, and I'm sitting in front of the television, yes, go, go, go. And I do that because who in Wellington can challenge them? They know about institutional racism. They know when our people are not valued. They know that we've got the head of government departments who are not supportive of the advancement of Māori. And so I love it because I know that nobody in Wellington, in the floor of the House, can challenge them with their knowledge. Every day, people from around the motu are sending information into Te Pāti Māori to say, this is what's happening, this is what's trending. And they pick it up and they run with it, and they need the support. And so, with all of Rawiri's knowledge in terms of the treaty, and Kiri, the workshops that she holds, so that we can become more informed and that we can stand and talk with confidence about the treaty, and that we have honoured the treaty, and we would expect our partner to start honouring it as well.
Kia ora.
So, kia ora.
Kia ora.
Rawiri, I might just move that on to you when it comes to what does your party, how will your party, I guess, honour those obligations to Māori workers to be able to support them?
That's a good question. I'm glad I'm not going up against Merepeka this year. What a formidable candidate. We're very, very lucky to have her voicing those type of kōrero in a general seat. This kōrero in a Māori seat is expected, but to have candidates in the general seat pushing those particular issues, I think, is a win for all of us.
Yes.
Regardless of which waka you're on, which party you support, is that we've got strong advocates pushing Te Tiriti o Waitangi and Māori advocacy in those seats. I just want to meet you, to Merepeka, for that powerful kōrero. In regards to Te Tiriti o Waitangi, it's like Merepeka said, we've honoured it for over 183 years.
Yeah, aye.
Article 1 was the consent to kāwanatanga. Kāwanatanga has been here. They've had kāwanatanga on this land since 1853. So since 1853, they established the first parliament, and it is still here today. It's enduring. Māori have honoured their part of Te Tiriti. The consent of our ancestors, the consent of our tipuna to kāwanatanga still endures today. Article 2 was to be undisturbed of our pre-existing rights, our full and exclusive rights to our estates, to our whenua, to our moana, to our awa, to our maunga, to our taonga, to our mokopuna. To live with dignity. Not to be treated as second-class citizens in our own country. And that's how we're treated. If you're Māori, you are treated as a second-class citizen. In employment. Across the board. Why should we be going to have to push for equity as a social worker? Why are we having to push? If you're Māori, you're second class. If you're Māori woman, you're third class. That's the reality of a system that's been built by the colonials. That's the reality. And we continue to fight against that today. So, the answers are, for Te Pāti Māori under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, Article 2 was actually to ensure our mana motu hake was intact. Article 3 was to be treated as equals. Ne? But our end game isn't equity and equality. Our end game is mana motu hake. Mana motu hake will be the only way we live with the absolute dignity that our tipuna envisaged for their mokopuna. And so, the Pāti Māori were the only ones that pushed for an independent Māori health authority. It's in our Māori Party Manifesto 2020. You look across all the other party manifestos, you won't find it anywhere else. The problem is, we needed it to be independent. We want an independent justice authority. We want an independent education authority. We want it mirrored. Anything that the Kāwanatanga has, we want it mirrored. And we want it to be financed based on the need. Based on the need. And so if we've got the highest statistics across the justice system, 50% of the male prison population are Māori. 64% of the female prison population are Māori. The money should follow to ensure we can start to look at resourcing, staffing, based on cultural roots, treaty-centric roots, our way, by Māori, for Māori, to Māori, and for all. And that's what the Pāti Māori stands for. Our policy manifesto is about ensuring that we can start to move into our own independence, to our own mana motuhake. We're never going to get the equality and the equity that we want, playing in their system. So what we need to do is start to mirror that system and say, actually Article 2 says we have to be undisturbed. They say, oh, this is taxpayers' money. We're all taxpayers here too. We actually pay more tax than anybody else. Hey, 2% of this country's population control 50% of this country's wealth. They pay 9% tax. We all pay 20.2% tax. We are paying for the lavish lifestyle of the few. And the wealth gap is getting further and further apart. So we need to start looking at what are the big policies that's going to make change. Wealth tax, that'll make a huge change. Put more money in the pocket of our people that work hard. And remember, Merepeka is right. We are bloody awesome.
Yeah.
We are stunning. Because we can go to a university and get the 2%. That's what it is. Your value is 2% at the university, what you come out with. It's the 98% we have that they will never have. Okay? So remember that. And that's why equity and equality is never going to work. Because they don't have the 98%. Being Māori is like having superpowers. Right? Being Māori is like having superpowers. We've just got to make sure that our superpowers are recognised. And you find your superpower. Find your 98%.
You mentioned wealth tax. I might come back to that a bit later, but I want to move on to the second part of that question, because PSA members talked about wanting to see greater support and better access for Māori when it comes to public services in both delivery and also in receiving those services. So if elected, and I'm going to go to you, Toni, with this question, how is your party going to ensure this? Ensure that that delivery of services in the public sector, I hate to use the word equitable after that, but that they're fair and that they have that access.
Kia ora. Bit of a hard act to follow after that. Take the bite, but I totally agree. Our Māori people have, we have superpowers. Our superpower is our ability to be able to walk in two worlds. It is our ability that against all odds, we still get up and we still share. No matter the disaster, no matter the hardship or the times, we will always open our doors for everyone. And part of Labour's policy, Te Pāti Labour, is also ensuring is that we bring people along with us. Being able to ensure that we are taking people along the journey, and it is a hard journey sometimes. As one of the first councillors, Māori Ward councillors in Whakatane District Council, we come across it a lot, and I'm sure as Fire has here, where we end up being the educators, we end up having to be the dialogue, taranga dialogue karakia. Part of that too is also bringing awareness to our people in the rooms that we are in. Being in the space is that being in those spaces is about decolonising the space with our presence. those decisions that they used to make when we weren't in there, they can no longer make. Those kōrero that they used to be able to have about us, they can no longer do because we are in the room at the time. The other part of that hard work is to ensure that we maintain those spaces and that we have those advocates who can speak strongly on the issues, and at times you need different voices in different places to be able to speak from a different angle. We know as Māori that we are political by nature. I had a kōrero with one of my cousins the other day, and he was sort of like, you know, talking, oh, cuz, I heard you're standing. And he's like, oh, I'm not political. And I was like, what? How can you not be political, cuz? We are a political phenomenon. We're not even meant to exist. Yet here we are. Here we are. We're not even meant to be in this room right now, but here we are. We are political by nature. And I said, well, you know, Auntie came to the last hapuhui and she put on the agenda about the 3 teaspoons missing from the wharekai. And he was like, hey, I go, that's political, cuz. And he goes, oh, how's that political? And I said, because it's about upholding the mana of the hapu. It's about ensuring that every detail and every aspect is looked at to ensure that that whakaaro of care and of value for your manuhiri has been input, even if it is 3 teaspoons. Because, you know, we know what it's like when you get to a thing and there's only 1 plastic teaspoon to pour down to. But the objective of that is to understand that at each and every point, no matter what space in the room that you are standing, we are all there for the same reasons. And that is for the betterment of our mokapuna, to be able to realise ngā wawatau a tātou tūpuna, and for our future. Not only of our Māori people, but all people and all things, including our environment. Now I know that Te Pāti Reiwa has done the best that they can with the Māori leadership that we have. Having ministers in cabinet of the executive level that are Māori who are managing portfolios for the whole of the country has made a huge impact. We may not see those little things that are coming through right now, but we have it will be long lasting impact. If we think about Te Tiriti, if some people have a look at the free trade agreements that Labour has secured under the leadership of Nanaia Mahuta, you will see that the change in the framework as those trade agreements with other countries like the UK and Europe have a clause in there in regards to adhering to the Te Tiriti or Waitangi. It also has more clauses in there in regards to ensuring that any of those companies that are coming here have to engage with Māori. There is also a part in there that looks at how we must look at securing relationships for Māori businesses and also Māori opportunities for employment. So even though we might not see those big things now, there has been a lot of work done to ensure that those things are put in place to be able to filter through and benefit our whānau. So, I don't know if that answers. Kia ora.
Charles, I just want to, you mentioned that you work on the ground with a lot of whānau around homelessness, and I guess I just want to ask you the question, one of the questions that came through from members is a lot of those services going from the public to iwi. Does your party support that?
Was that in comparison with the just transition?
Yeah, I think in general, yeah.
Right. O kia ora tātou. Kia ora. Superpowers there, I feel like flying out of here now. Oh, I might be Superman, this must be Superwoman and the Hulk. Kapoi. Nō reira, tēnei ahau kamihia te anu. Yes, I have been working on the ground, like I said. And one thing our people need is they do need empowerment. There's too much dependency. We need to lift them up. We need to help them to rise up, not stay down. Rawiri talked about wealth tax and taxing the wealth, and that could be a solution. But in my whakaaro, you know, for me, we're thinking of, if you come from that angle, that's a deficit-minded angle. For me, I'm about upraising them. Not attacking those who are wealthy. We got to look at why are they wealthy? How did they get there? And why can't we be there? Why can't we be the wealthy? Why can't our mokopuna be the wealthy? So what are the strategies that we have in place to uprise and lift them up and empower them? Like I said, I've worked in the sector, I've worked amongst the homeless, I've worked amongst those people who are downtrodden, who have low self-esteem, who have no hope for the future. And I tell you, the last thing they need is for us to say, oh, we'll just tax the rich to make you richer. Well, to me, that math don't work out. If we want to get our people rich, we need to empower them with richness. We need to empower them with the mana of who they are, the mana of where they come from. And that mana, and I spoke about this mana on Sunday, that's te mana o te tangata. The mana, your mana as a person. Te mana ahuake, your individualism, your uniqueness. Te mana motuhake, the mana of the collective to come together in unity and as whakaaro, kia kotahi ai te whakaaro, kia hikina. E te mana wairua, mana atua, your spiritual well-being. So, you know, we should be really focusing on our people. How can we raise them up? How can we empower them? And I do like those ideas of the fire who talked about the trade training schemes back in the past. You know, empowering our people to work. Because I tell you, honestly, there are a lot of people out there that don't want to work. Because they're not encouraged to work. The system is failing them. The system is set up for them to fail. Do you know how the social housing system works? I'll tell you. So in order for one of our whānau to get into a kaingoora home, they need a housing rating number. The highest housing rating number is an A20. Rawiri probably knows this. An A20. And then even then, it's still a competition to get into a kaingoora home. Do you know how you get to A20? Well, there's certain criteria, and it works like this. The more that is wrong with you, the better it is. So if you've got dependency on drug and alcohol, if you're pohara, if you're mental health, if you've got all these different issues, the better your case is for a higher rating number, higher housing rating number. So instead of saying empowering our whānau to be better, we'd rather hold them down. Instead of looking for solutions, we're looking for what's wrong with them, to keep them down there. Kia pēhi rātou. My thing is about empowerment. We've got to raise up our people. That system needs to be changed. We need to turn it upside down. Not from a deficit mindset, but from a mindset that is to empower our people, to strive, to achieve better, to thrive, to have aspirations for the future. Hey, they may not get it in their generation, but at least they can see something for their uri, for their next generation. Te pāharakeke. So that's why I'm standing. I'm standing not just for me, but for my tamariki, my mokopuna, and your tamariki and your mokopuna. And so koia, that's what I think. Kia ora.
And I guess when it comes to the system and some of those changes that have been made within the systems to give more access to Māori delivery, we have organisations like Te Aka Whaiora and Te Whatuora now in Merepeka. Will your party continue to support those types of initiatives and organisations?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, whānau. I mean, we want to be able to deliver services that we've had some hand in designing and having input into it. I don't want to see this business any longer. Oh, here we are. That's the service that we're going to provide for you. No, no, no. We need to be there when the services are being thought about, when we're designing them and developing them. And the one thing is, we want to be delivering these services. We want to be delivering to our own people because our people trust us. Our people trust us. So we've got to be there right from the start, and the health authority is the first one. We should have our own justice. This ACC does us no favours. The current ACC does us no favours. You have a look at what we get, Māori get, in terms of compensation and in terms of claims that are satisfactorily concluded, the majority of those go to the Pākehā, not to us, not to us. So we need to be very aware of the system that we're up against. And that's an embedded system in these government agencies. And so can I just say that as PSA members, you actually do have a significant role to play. Because you are the ones that can say, oh, taihoa, that is not good. That is not good for Māori. And so when you are looking at promoting and supporting people to move through the ranks, look for the people that will be fearless from your own ranks. We can do our bit, but in every organisation now, our own people have to identify the leaders. And if you've got people who are leading significant units within your work areas, and the korataki, then tell them to move out. Tell them to move on. You know, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? Because we have to expect that those who have an awareness and understanding of the issues that impact Māori will speak up. Because we cannot have these limp-handed people. We can't have wishy-washy people in leadership today. The issues are so important that we've got to have fearless leadership, that you've got to know the issues, and if you're not doing your job, then move out and move on. And so it's about making sure, but I just want to say, I want to thank the thousands of Māori whānau that get up every morning, make sure their children have enough to eat, they make sure that they get to school, and they come home and they're there and they're looking after them. Our Māori business people, that every day they're challenged with the businesses, business problems that come their way, and yet they get up, they invest their money, they support their workers, and they're doing great. So while I said before that I'm not blinded to the downside of some of the issues that our whānau face, there are literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of Māori in Aotearoa right now who are exemplary in terms of supporting their whānau and growing their whānau. And I say kia ora to them as well. They are significant in where New Zealand is going. And we must always make sure that we understand that we could all play a role. You can't just leave it to the politicians, you can't just leave it to the local authority and the people who are elected there. We all have an opportunity to shine as leaders, and we must take that opportunity, because now is definitely the time. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
And we often hear about the stress on a lot of Māori workers, especially in those kaupapa Māori iwi services. And when it comes to being able to support those workers in terms of workers across the sector, both Māori and non-Māori, but how do you support those workers when it comes to fair funding initiatives, equal pay, fair pay agreements? What's your party stance on things like social insurance?
Oh, no, we took all of them. Just to bring it back to Te Papaiouru, the PSA, we've got to make sure that we look after the kaimahi. And it's not just, we're talking equity and pay, but we're to look after the 98% of what they bring to the job, which is their wairua, their hine ngaro, and their tina, and their whānau. And quite often the 98% allows you to work, what doesn't allow you, it makes you work over and above what you're expected to do. Because that's what we do as Māori. Life doesn't start at 9 and finish at 5.
No.
Hey. And so a lot of the mahi you fellas are doing, and I know, because I've worked in these spaces. We've all worked with our communities. Nobody's in an isolated case that they've worked more with anybody else. We've all worked in our communities, with our homeless, with our beneficiaries, with all our whānau that are struggling out there. It's hard to put bread and butter on the table. Hey. And so one way is making sure we get the pay equity. The other way is making sure that we have access to bread and butter to put onto the table. Nobody else is talking about taking GST off K. Nobody else is pushing against the duopoly on supermarkets to give our people some dignity to be able to put bread and butter on the table. Hitting the rich isn't a deficit thinking. Hitting the rich is ensuring that their monopoly on Māori stolen assets is ensured to start filtering down to our people. You've got Pākehā farmers out there who have inherited farms from their kraua, who fought with our 28th Māori Battalion, came back a month before the Māori Battalion arrived back, given the land ballots, and then Mokopuna are still benefiting from it today. That's not deficit thinking. For the government to continue to drain our waterways, sell our water to the Chinese is not deficit thinking.
No.
Taxing the rich and ensuring the wealth has now started to spread to our people must happen. Taxes is what runs this country.
Right.
It's what pays for the roads, it's what pays for the hospitals, it's what pays for the schools, where we're all talking about working and equitable pay. This is about ensuring that the system starts to work for us. And an economic view on any country is based on its tax. Now, when you give a tax break to the rich to pay 9%, from the point of view I've heard today, they are always going to pay 9%, and we are always going to be paying 20.2%.
Yeah. Kia ora.
That's the reality. Under our wealth tax policy, if you're making $30,000 and less, you pay no tax. Those are all our beneficiaries. Those are all our superannuants. Those are the whānau that are not being paid what they should be paid. No tax. If you're making under 60,000, we put another $84 in your bank. If you're being paid under 90,000, there's $121 more in your bank. Labour's proposition for GST or fruit and veg, $4. $4. They make $3.4 billion just on taxing kai. 40,000 tons of kai gets wasted every year. That's shocking. That should be distributed for the better use of it. You have 194,000 empty houses here in Aotearoa. 100,000 homeless in this country. 60% of that are Māori. 60,000 homeless Māori in Aotearoa. And you have 194,000 empty houses. It's not a matter of supply. It is a matter of greed.
Aye.
And those 2%, plus a whole lot of foreign owners, own those homes. You all know a home on these streets here that's been empty for ages. You tax that. We will implement an empty house tax, a ghost tax, on those houses that are empty. Capital gains tax.
Kia ora.
And start using those 194,000 empty homes for the greater good of Aotearoa. This is how powerful tax is. This has got nothing to do with deficit thinking. This is about forward thinking.
Aye.
This is about using our initiative. This is about using the system to now start paying back for what is taken from us and what it continues to take from us. Our Aotearoa hau looks like how we will treat you on the marae. And same with our workers. We will welcome you. Everybody is welcome onto our marae. And we welcome non-Māori, our Tangata Pacifica people, to the waharo of that marae. We will welcome you. We will feed you. We will house you. We will care for you. We will love you. The Māori Party Manifesto is all about that. The Treaty of Waitangi, yes, it is in the accord with the UK, but it's only our obligation to uphold the Treaty of Waitangi, not theirs. And that was signed with the UK, who was supposed to have the Treaty of Waitangi agreement with in the first place.
Oh, we.
They are not obligated to uphold the Treaty of Waitangi in their trade agreement.
Yeah.
That hold is on us. And they still can't get it right. Aotearoa do not know how to whakamana te tiriti o Waitangi. No, New Zealand doesn't. Aotearoa does. But New Zealand doesn't. And so we are moving into a space where we need to understand what these trade agreements mean. What does tax do? It actually lifts us out of that poverty to allow us to have some more dignity, to be welcomed onto our marae, to be fed, to be housed, to be cared for, to be loved. And that's what everybody deserves here in Aotearoa.
Tony, we just heard Te Pāti Māori list some of the initiatives they want to bring in when it comes to lifting that Māori employment and living. What are some of those initiatives that Te Pāti Raukawa wants to bring in?
Kia ora mihi atu, ka koutou noa. Well, Te Pāti Raukawa is looking at a process of being able to have multiple policies that help to assist our whānau with the cost of living. So yes, you've heard of the GST of vegetables and fruit, and also to being able to support our whānau when it comes to paid parental leave. We've also increased the working, we have a policy to implement the increase in working and tax credit, which is going to give whānau up to $50 extra. We've also lifted the threshold for that. But also since 2017, whānau have received an increase of over $150 in their benefits. So there has been a way in which to manage. What we have to be careful about, and I have asked our party as well, when it comes with regards to wealth tax, is how we are able to ensure that we're not going to impact on inflation, or that we're not going to increase inflation. At this stage, our party is not saying anything in regards to wealth tax. However, as whānau, we understand that we are in a MMP system, which means you're going to have a major party, and also that may have to go into coalition with other smaller parties. To be able to get your take across the line and make it into legislation so it actually filters down to the ministries to make it happen, you need to have the numbers to push that legislation through. Part of getting those numbers is to be able to have a major party that is supportive of what you are negotiating for, the policies that you are putting forward. It is much harder for those policies to be a reality if you are in opposition. And it will be much harder to get any policies like that if you have a national and act government. What we need to be concerned about, I know that Te Pāti Raukawa has a lot of work to do, but considering what will things look like in the future and who they may be partnering with. And if you have two smaller parties that have similar policies that are quite strong at negotiating with their major party, then we may have one of the strongest governments that are for Māori ever. But we also have to consider what would happen if National and ACT get in. Not only over the last 6 years we've had huge investment for Māori, more than we have ever had in decades, and that is because of the leadership that we have had and the kaha and courage for leaders like Nanaia Mahuta to put herself forward and look at arrangements to do with our wai, to put herself forward to be able to ensure that we have a Māori voice in local government. And you can do that because you're a major party that has the numbers to get the ture across the line. So as Māori, like we are political by nature, we also have to ensure that we are strategic in being able to see the realities of the policies that you support actually happening in the future. And that we do not lose sight of that, and instead we end up with the opposite, which is far, far more worse. And we have a party like ACT that is saying to remove the principles of the treaty and our policies, then that is the worst outcome we can have. What we do have to look at is what we can make happen. Kaya koe te mana. You have the mana in your hands to be able to vote. You have the mana of a system that enables you to be strategic about ensuring that the policies you want to turn into legislation becomes a reality. And the reality is that you're going to need a major party to be able to do that. Part of my reasons for standing is because we know the kaikiri that exists. But in recent years that has heated up and been influenced by overseas trends. And it has become dangerous. It has come to the point where our own aroha is manipulated to be used against ourselves. That kōrero has seeped in and manipulated the trauma that our whānau hold personally, to manipulate their spirituality, to turn themselves against themselves. And that is being manipulated right now to be able to put a different government in place. I see that happening and I don't want it to happen anymore. I want to ensure that I run to the front line too, with all of our other whānau that are in there, and that we defend what we have fought for. And that we ensure that we maintain the line so that we can ensure that the work continues. Whether that be with this side of the house or that side of the house, but that the work continues for the betterment of our whānau. None of us are there because we're there for ourselves. We are all there for the betterment of our people and our tamariki. And we know that. And that's what we have to look at. We can, have our little things between us, but at the end of the day, we are all here for the same place. All of our whānau are onto it, and we know strategically we need to ensure who we put together at the end of that day after October the 14th. Kia ora.
And Charles, you talked about being aspirational for Māori, and I guess a part of the employment aspirations that I haven't quite touched on is, what are some of the economies or especially here in Te Waiariki, you think could really empower our people and create those, those job opportunities?
Let me just backtrack a bit. I think the problem here is that we've got too many fat cats. Fat cats collecting paychecks. The bureaucracy is shocking. The bureaucracy is shocking. And so our people are downtrodden. Now we've got this government, the most Māori MPs sitting ever in caucus. Most Māori representation in Parliament ever. And I don't know about you, but I've been looking around and it seems like Māori have gotten worse. The statistics have climbed, incarceration has gotten worse, homelessness is exacerbating, that's the word. But, so the question is, what the bloody hell's going on? I think we're too focused on government-centric when it should be whānau-centric. It's not the government, this is it. Is it true democracy? Because you have a vote, and that is your power. But once you vote, that's it. Now your your mana lies in whoever wins. They have the power. We put them there, and then it's up to them to lead us. And I don't know about you, but I'm not happy with where we've been led to. So you've got to ask the question, what the bloody hell's going on? We need real change. And in terms of that question, when we talk about, raising aspirations for our people in terms of employment, well, it's already happening here in Te Waiariki. There are already programs happening, schemes that are happening, and there are revolutionary and innovative ideas that are being created right now. I actually know of some. I'm not going to mention the names or anything, But I know of a person who's working on a scheme right now to help whānau within gangs to get jobs. This person is innovative. Because as you know, our gang whānau, they find it hard to get a job. Because sometimes they've got tattoos all over their faces and people won't employ them. And so this revolutionary idea that this man has is to empower the whānau to work. He has a scheme that he's putting in place. And then alongside that, he's getting around the leaders of the gangs. And he's encouraging the leaders to stop the ram raids. Because I tell you now, the police can't. They got no answers. So go back to the people. They have the answers. You have the answers. You're on the ground, you know. Government don't know, they have no clue. Whānau centric, not government centric. Less bureaucracy and more empowerment to the whānau. Whakamana whānau. We heard about autonomy and mana motuhake. I'll tell you what autonomy and mana motuhake is. It's you. PSA. You are the people who work on the ground. You are the people who work with the people. So bureaucracy, step aside and let the people do the mahi. You should be empowered and have the autonomy to determine the outcomes and the achievements for our people. Because you know them. You work with them. It shouldn't be KPI driven, tick box. It should be whānau orientated, whānau solution, whānau driven. And who better know? Who knows better the whānau than you? Who work with them? Who work with them on the ground? So give you the money. You need the resource. Our navigators, our whānau navigators, our connectors in the community. Too many of our people are falling through the gaps. I've seen it with my own eyes. I was talking to a wahine here today who works with our whānau. She works for Whatuora. And her the region, for the one woman, the region that she has to work in, within the Waiariki is huge. And we're asking her to fix our people? Makes no sense. So you've got too many fat cats sitting up there, collecting a paycheck, doing nothing. That's how I see it anyway. So, like I said, I need te hoi ho ho. I don't know much, but what I do know is that I have a heart for our people, and I work hard, damn hard, for our people. Kia ora. Oh, and in terms of aspirations, I think we need to empower our people into business. We talk about deficit mindset, okay. Well, here's a power mindset. Empower our people into business. Empower our people instead of thinking, oh, let me get a kāinga ora home so I can only pay 25% of my income. Why don't you empower them to think, how can you own your own home? How can you be an owner in your own land? You want to know what equitable is? Anei, here's an analogy of what equitable is. Now, we all know equitable derives from the word equity, which talks about value. And equity in housing talks about the money that is in the house, that is not a mortgage. Well, here's a good example. Listen to this analogy of equitable. 100 years ago, I came and I stole your apple orchard. 100 years later, I come back to you feeling guilty, feeling bad for all the injustices that I caused to you, the harm. So, to atone my sins, I give you back a bag of apples to appease all that stuff, all the wrongdoing I did for you. Now that is not equitable. Equitable would be me giving you back at least half of the orchard, if not all of the orchard, because I have had 100 years of good living, while you've had 100 years of marginalization. And that is a great example of our people. And that's Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Our stance on Te Tiriti o Waitangi is that we will enshrine it as a constitutional covenant between two nations, so that no one could touch it. Kia mana motu hake ai. No re te iwi, tēnei aha. Kia ora.
And we are running out of time a little bit, so I'm going to ask our last question and ask that we keep the answers to this one a little bit shorter, just because we're running out of time. But it's a really important kaupapa around climate change and our taiao. I was just down here a couple of weeks doing a story about the rise in the levels of the lakes, cutting off communities, and imagine if that road between Rotorua and Whakatane goes underwater. So we've seen the cyclones as well and the impacts along the coast. So I'll start with you, Merepeka. Will you support a Te Ao Māori approach to responding to climate change when it comes to things like supporting marae to become a more integral part of our emergency network or carbon emissions?
Kia ora. Yes, I will support the opportunity to use our marae when there is a significant environmental event that happens, but it should not be taken for granted.
Yes.
You know, if you look at how we stepped up, not only during COVID, but certainly during the floods, and now when we look to see who has got the money from that has come in to support some of the initiatives, our marae have definitely missed out. And I was at a meeting this morning when I heard that, and I thought, so we will always make our marae available. We will always do that, and that's for our whole community. But all I'm saying is that we should make sure that they are fit for purpose, and that is the government that should be helping us now to do that, because the environmental issues are going to be more important as we go on. So I will support that, obviously. But it is our younger people that are requiring us to take action. They hear about we used to be able to swim in the places where their tupuna used to swim, and their aunties and uncles where they used to get the eels and everything like that, koura. They know those things, but now of course it's just hearsay. They can't do those sort of things. But it's young people that are saying to us, why can't we have what you have? It is not the young people that buggered it up, the environment. It's not them. It's not and I want to say also, it's not the young people and it's certainly not the young people that sold off our state houses, because that has a significant effect on our whānau. If you don't have a home to call your own and to live in and to keep you warm, then then your opportunity to contribute to the environment is even lessened. So these are significant issues. All I just say really now is it will always to me come back to leadership. And Pāti Māori has always said that our people first. We believe in our people. We say our people are magic. And so that means that we want them to have a good home that's suitable, fits their purpose. We want them to be well connected into Te Ao Māori and living as Māori in the land of their tupuna. You know, we want them to be well educated so that when environmental issues come along, they can have input into the development of actions and strategies, knowing that they've got the smarts to be able to contribute in a very, very good way. Plus, of course, knowing all the regions and the things that are so important. So, you know, those are significant issues. I heard the other day that we've had some firefighters over in Canada because all of those fires over there are heading this way as well. And we say we're not prepared for that. We're not well prepared. So it is about getting well prepared. It's making sure that we have everything available to use for our communities, and that includes everybody who resides within our communities. We have a wonderful opportunity now just to say what the Pākehā gave us was, I think, the leadership that they thought that was good enough. Our leadership will be stunning because we care for everybody. We're not exclusive. We want everybody to be made welcome. You know, as Rawiri said, we will love you, we will care for you, we will be responsible for you, we will do all of those things. Our environment is important, our people are important, but our leadership must be there right from the start. Kia ora.
And Rawiri, you're seeing this down on the coast, whānau cut off down there. You know, how important is this?
Yeah, well, I had my whānau stuck here the other day because the road was closed to the coast. And I don't know if you saw a video on the social media with the logs coming across the... you know, we were told forestry was going to be the saving grace of the coast. It was going to provide jobs and allow our people to live at home. In actual fact, it's killed many of our whānau. Our people shouldn't be worrying about whether their whānau are going to come home or not, because there's huge safety issues. The forestry in the current legislation are allowed to leave 30% of the slash behind and remove 70%, and it's the 30% that's doing all the damage. And if you see further down the coast, every time there's a little bit of rain now, it just washed out through down the rivers at Tolaga Bay there in Uawa, and just litters the whole coast. But not only litters the whole coast, what it does is it suffocates all the kaimuan. And so what you ended up having was hundreds, if not thousands, of koura and paua washed up on shore because they were suffocated by all the logs floating around. So we've seen the reality of this. We've seen the reality of this, the erosion of the Raukawa-Tait through the lack of pest control. This is assumed dock estate up in the Raukawa-Tait, and so they haven't been able to love it, they haven't been able to care for it. And so I'm sure all of us here are here to ensure that we protect the whakapapa Papatūānau, the Ranginui. And the Pāti Māori actually see climate change different to everybody else. Because the climate is doing what the climate does. And we can't change the climate, but we can change the behaviour that's affecting the climate. It's not climate driving all the cars. It's not climate seabed mining. It's not climate polluting our seas and the air. It's people. It's people. And so we have to have people change. But in terms of adapting to the climate, we must ensure that there's resource to our communities to ensure we're able to adapt to the climate. Raising lake levels, rising lake levels. You've got these weather events that are happening more often than not. When we were growing up, we had bowler. And for 20, 30 years, all we talked about was bowler. Now we've got a bowler, Gabriel, a Winston, a Ginny May, whatever. It's happening every year. Hey, Heather. Whatever the name of the cyclone is, they're happening more and more now than they ever have. So what do we need to do about it? We need to start putting in preventative plans. We don't want to be stuck in recovery. We want to be stuck in the preparedness. We want to be able to adapt now. So we've got policies in our climate change policy that talks about $100 million being put aside to start looking at planning for those communities around climate adaptation. Our people moved before. They're hunters and gatherers. We're hunters and gatherers. We moved. Like my whānau in Tuhoi, they just stood in one place. The pig didn't come to them, they went to the pig. The kereru didn't come to them, they went to the kereru. And for us, the measure of a good environmental system is that we're freely eating kereru. I'm not saying go and eat the kereru now, so leave it. But I'm saying the measure of it is that we're eating the kai that our tipuna ate. And they're not recovering. And they're not endangered. That's where we want to be. That's what Mana Motuhaka is. We want to be at a point where we are doing what we do. Unfortunately, their quota system has buggered up the moana. Taking the big kaimoana and leaving the little kaimoana. Our people never did things like that. You left the breeders in the water and you took the little ones. They've got it the wrong way around. They're taking all the adults out of the community and leaving all the juveniles or the rangatai in the water to fend for themselves. And then being able to rahui different places. Rahui works better than reserves. Because reserves, you end up with a whole lot of dominant species. So if you've got too many koura, they start to eat the kina. If you've got no kina, There's nothing eating the seaweed. I know, I was brought up on the coast. And so we brahuid areas to ensure that the ecosystem, we were gathering the kai, was able to rejuvenate. That's not happening anymore. Same with Kereru. They never went to the same place every year. They moved from that to the Nico, to the, over to the karaka berries over there, to the Miro. Hey, and so they left that space there for them to rejuvenate. That's what Papatūānuku does. Hey, and so only indigenous knowledge, is going to heal this planet. Those fires over there in Australia, in Canada, are because they put bans on indigenous people burning fires at the time they know when to burn fires. It's like our old people always burn fires. Coming into autumn, heading out into the spring. But what happens is, if you've got all that dry grass there that hasn't been burnt, the Aborigines have been doing this for thousands of years, scorching the earth to ensure that you don't feed when the lightning comes in the summer, because that's their rainy season. It doesn't spark up that dry grass, and then it takes off like wildfires. They're stupid the people over there. And they put bans on indigenous peoples lighting fires. They did the same in Canada. And now, this is what happened. You get these uncontrollable fires. Only indigenous knowledge is going to heal this planet. Only whanapuni knows how to look after its moana. Only Tūhoi know how to look after his ngahere. Only Te Arawa know how to look after its lakes. When I say ko tihi rau te maunga, ko whanga pra o te ao. Maunga pō hatu te maunga. Hey, tauranga awa. I mean that, because I whakapapa to it. I whakapapa to it. Nobody will look after those things better than me. So only indigenous knowledge will heal the planet. So we need climate adaptation, we need plans for marae, we need resources to go to marae to start planning now. We don't want to be in recovery or relief. We want to be prepared, we want to be moved into spaces where we know that lake levels are not going to affect our marae and our kai. Hey, you look at Esk Valley down in Kaungunu. Esk Valley, there are no maraes in there. Why? Because our tipuna knew not to build there. Hara mai te Pākehā put their orchards there, built their flash homes. Hey, next minute, gone skis. Unfortunately, Hukarere went with it. Hey, and so this is the reality. Have a look to see where our people live. That's why you can't build up there. It was an old park. Oh, for Christ's sakes, that's where people lived in the park. But there's a reason why they live there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason why they live there. Don't live there. Hey, don't build your house on the sand. Like it says in the Bible, the foolish man built his house on the sand. Hey. Because toka tū moana. Me he o tō whare ki runga te toka tū moana. So koe hoki te kōrero hikama, go back to our own indigenous knowledge, the way we look after things. Hey. So kia tare no ki tātai te hoki atu ki ngā wā ngā mātua tīpuni. Because I also dream of the times when our ancestors ate the kai they ate, lived off the whenua, had that rongoa. I grow kumara by the moon, by the maramataka. And I know a lot of people do here as well. So going back to the simple living, one is about making money, the other one is about saving money. Hey, me whakatipu ka kaitata. Building our own human economy. Going back to sharing, going back to bartering, going back to hey, te tiaki tātou i a tātou. I hear that in all our kōrero here today. Me whakawhaiti tātou. I agree with my cousin over here. We all here try to make a difference for our people. And I acknowledge these fellows. It's not I wouldn't encourage anybody to go into this bloody job. Honestly.
No thanks.
That house is toxic.
Yeah.
It's toxic. And it's really ugly. And you don't want to be in there too long. You become a career politician. Some of them have been in there 30 years, for Christ's sake. Heck, I've only been there 3 and it feels like 30. But I want to just acknowledge them, my whanaunga here who put their names up. Because it's not an easy job. Debating kaupapa, just to get in there. And you're up against a system. You believe you can just go and do what you want to do, and there, I try and stick to the rules as best I can. But just to say that it's not an easy job, and it's not an easy job to put your hand up. But because we see the hurt in our people and the pain in our people, you've got no choice but to put your hand up and never go. So I want to meet you, my whanaunga, today, and Merepeka, while she's seasoned. Hey, it's like a fine wine. Got a fine wine. We're more whiskies, 18. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge the whanaunga before I end. I think there's a nice way to just to encourage each other to, as we can get stuck into the debates and the policies, but at the end of the day, whānau ko tai tata. Tai no, e toto tahi tata. E toto tahi tata. So we can debate the ideas, bring it on, let's go. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure we check each other's ngākau, check each other's wairua, because behind us are our tamariki, are our whānau. Okay? So ngā mihi kia tātou i tēnei.
You follow the fine line comment, but Tony, I'll just get your whakaaro on the taiao as well and any.
Oh, fine. You got politicians up here.
Our community's often the first to get cut off. I think with Waiman and Matahi, whenever there's a flood, the gorgeous closing days.
I remember us being, we were up at the homestead up in Matahi with Dad and them and having a flood. I think it was back in the 80s, was a big one. And back then things were quite different. So we learned that when the river is flooded, it's really warm. So there were different parts of the river Awa would go to, we'd go across the flat bit, because that part of the river was warm. Because of all the turbulence, you could have a warm swim or a warm thing. It might be a bit brown, but how you were able to utilise those parts of the thing. So, it was a different whakaaro back then, because it wasn't about that you had to be careful. There was a trust in terms of the river looked after you as long as you behaved yourself. There was a trust in knowing that we could disappear after we'd done all our chores, to be able to be part of the environment, to be able to play down the river all day, and that there was an understanding that you were going to be looked after. Those whakaaros have changed nowadays. I mean, even as I was bringing up my kids, even though we stayed at the river all day, when I was bringing them, oh no, they can't go by themselves, won't be with them. So the whole whakaaro in terms of how we had the relationship with our awa and our environment, because we fully trusted that you were being looked after, and that as long as you weren't being naughty, and doing some tanakia stuff, for you to have a little accident or whatever, you knew that you were going to be looked after, because there was that mutual respect there. Even as far as when we were younger, and when my nan and them used to do all the gardens, and so our jobs would be, as a whānau, would all go up, and our job was to go across the river with our uncle on the horse to gather all the fern bracken. Gathering all that fern bracken, and you got used to that smell of the fern bracken, and bring that fern bracken back, because when they would harvest, they used to have pits, but instead we had these old sheds that were dark sheds, that you lined the bins with it, and then you had your different riwai that were put into those places. And our jobs as kids, because we were dying to go for a swim all the time, no matter if it was winter or if it was summer, was that our job was to take from the little pole that the nannies were sitting there sorting, and take it to the big pole. That was our job, run, do that, running, and And they used to have orchards, so we had all these orchard trees and fruits and that, and you know, we had to go pick up all the rotten ones for the pigs and all of that kind of stuff. And you know, as kids we sort of thought, oh, you know, we've got to do all this mahi and this job just to get a swim. And I look back now and I think of how grateful we were to sit up in those trees and get a sore guts eating all those plums, you know. Going back and trying to pretend you don't have a sore guts because you were told not to eat them. You know, coming back with blackberry things all over your face on the way down to the river. But it's that relationship in terms of what we have, and I hear what my whanauna is saying is that it is important for us. It's not just a talk about relationship, that it is a relationship in which we have full trust in our environment as the relationship that we have with it, as it looks after us and speaks to us all the time. And one of the, I was thinking to myself, oh, there might be an idea for a business what if we find, can I strike this off the record? No. If we're bringing back, you know, if we're wanting to bring back our extinct animals, what about initiatives or ideas that look at ensuring that we may possibly, I don't like using the word, the farm, in which we're able to ensure that the breeding of them and the increase of them under our management can happen. So that it isn't a deficit kind of thing, oh, you can't touch that because there's not enough of them, or so why don't we make enough of them, so that we can get that. And I remember the stories of Dad from Koro, who would always, back in those days when they could get them, and that my nan would be served the first one. Always. Aye. And I know I have to talk about our policies, but I know that Te Papaiouru is doing a lot in regards to the reduction of emissions, that there are investment funds that are going into supporting that Māori can also access to be able to increase their capacity around looking at resilient solutions. Now I'm just going back on when we've had a hapuhi not too long ago, and we talked about resilience and coming up with solutions. And so, you know, some of those whakaaro were going back, you know, hoki nā rā mua of how, maybe we need to start looking at horses, you know, maybe we need to start looking at using waka, because if our rivers are always flooded and our gorge is always cut off and stuff like that. And the other idea that our whānau had was maybe we need to start training pilots and having helicopters. You know, it was being able to listen to our hapu and to come up with their own solutions in regards to what was going to help them if they were going to be cut off, because the marae is always going to be the place where people are going to centralise themselves, because it's a place where you can, you know, all sleep, and a place where you can all make kai. Engari, I just also wanted to mihi to everyone here today, and also to all of you for experiencing my first debate.
You're not a virgin anymore.
No. Thank you, PSA, for breaking me in. I will keep it but I just really wanted to acknowledge you all here and to mihi to you, because like everyone here, we are all on specific journeys. There is no coincidence as to why we are all sitting in this room and in our different positions. It is all part of it. And I wish you all aroha always for you and all your families, and mihi to you all.
Hey Charles, I'll get you to wrap up with some of your whakaaro around your party's policies around protecting te taiao.
Yeah, kia ora. Kia ora tātai. Virgins, eh? Yeah, I'm in that boat. I think Rawiri, he touched on some things that very true. The climate. The climate will do what the climate has done. Hapa tuanuku. Other Earth. E hea tana pakiki. Te tai? No muri rānu, ne? Our Earth is old. Old. You fellas seen Ice Age? You know, climate change, climate has always been there. The earth has gone through cycles, and it will continue to go through cycles, regardless of you and I, regardless of what we do. It'll do what it's done, like Rawiri said. The climate will do what the climate has always done. Now there is data, there is research done, and then there's research done on the research, and then more research on research. Sounds like a lot of hui, and no doing. But how reliable is that data? That's the question that I ask. Yes, there are signs out there in Te Taio. And Rawiri touched on another thing that I thought, yeah, he's right. Indigenous knowledge. Indigenous knowledge, and I totally agree with that. Our legislation, our policies, when it comes to Te Taio, when it comes to climate change, should be underpinned by Indigenous knowledge. We know. We are tangata whenua. Right there, in that word there, in that name, tangata whenua. People of the land, the sea, the ngahere, the maunga. Unfortunately though, our tupuna didn't always get it right. Kei hia te moa. Kei hia te huia. So even our tupuna made mistakes. And we make mistakes as well. That's human nature. But in terms of answers for climate change, you and I have the answers. Unfortunately, like I said, we have a government system that is government-centric and not necessarily whānau-centric or Māori-centric, Indigenous-centric. Instead, we have people dictating to us how it should be. And not just government, but globalists. We have globalists dictating to us how we should live. We have the World Economic Forum dictating to us. We have UN dictating to us. We have the World Health Organization dictating to us. We've just come through a pandemic. They've dictated to us. And by the way, did we vote those people in? Well, I certainly didn't. No, they were just appointed there. So they aren't even for the people. Yet, we've had them come to our country and offer us $2 billion. Did you know that? That was in the paper a few weeks ago. What are they buying? Or what are we selling? So when it comes to Te Taio, look at us, we have the solutions. Rawiri touched on Rawiri. Rawiri touched on Rawiri. Nei te kāna. Rawiri is there to protect, so that we can rejuvenate. We know when we shouldn't be harvesting kai. No, ka rāhui tia. Or when there's a tragedy, ka rāhui tia. We know. We look at te marama taka, which Rawiri touched on. And ngā tohu o te marama. You know, he tohu mō ia āhuatanga o te marama. There's a sign for each phase of the moon. And it informs and instructs, if you're that way inclined, in how you may live. We now have a national celebration of Matariki. What is that? Is it just a token? Or does it really mean something? You know, when we look at Matariki, we have Tupuanuku Tupuarangi. Tupuanuku informs us of Haumia Tiki Tiki, the kai of the whenua, the kumara, the kamokamo, te riwai, kānga. We have Waiti Waita, the fresh water, te wai Māori, te wai tai, te moana. So we already have this knowledge there. And we're already celebrating it as a nation, by the way. So the answers are there. Don't be fooled. Don't let us be dictated to. Yes, we need to protect our taio. Our taio is very important. Our environment is very important. We need to protect it for our future generations. Do not get me wrong. But I question this whole thing of zero carbon. Zero carbon. Our trees need carbon. Without carbon, they can't produce oxygen. Now, common sense says, And do you know how much it costs for an electric car? How many of you own an electric car in here? I haven't seen any Teslas out there in the driveway. So, you know, we talk about protecting whakapapa. Well, I'll tell you what protecting whakapapa is. It's when we look after our people and the whenua. It's when we look after, there needs to be a balance between economy and environment. There needs to be a balance in a relationship. Because now, we're having taxes on carbon. So now the petrol's expensive. And our people are struggling already. I have whānau over in Australia. Man, it costs an arm and a leg to fly there because I've got to pay taxes on the fuel to compensate for the carbon. Okay, te pai. But we need to think about these things. So, you know, we have the solution. We, the people. And like Rawiri said, indigenous knowledge. So, you know, I think when it comes to policy and legislation around te taiao, around the environment, around climate change, it needs to be underpinned by indigenous knowledge. Nō reire te iwi, hoi aku whakaaro. Hey, I might be wrong, I might be right, who knows? But what I do know is that our people are suffering. We need to do all that we can do to empower them. So coming back to my original kupu, whakamana. Whakamana hia tātai. Nō reira, hei whakakapi, he mihi tēnei kia koutou katoa. He hōnore nui tēnei ki te noho, i te taho o tēnei nā. Kia ora. Nā, me mihi ka tika ki ai te mea ko taku i ta mātāmua, no te whānau paora. No te whānau paora, te ehutu. Chagma, Masau, Uncle Masau, ai Koro Dan, nani atawhai. Koera te ingo taku ta māhine, atawhai. So, he kāwa hekinga i te whānau apanui. Me mihi ki a koe i te rangatira, i te tuakana. O tira ki a koe, ngā puti o te ao. Ngā puti o te ao. And I've known Merepeka, and she's a beautiful woman. One thing I like about Merepeka is that she means what she says, and she does what she says. She's a woman for the people, that lady. So I've got a lot of respect for her. I don't really know Toni that much, but I've met her and she's a beautiful wahine. But I do know some of your whanaunga. Anei, whanaunga Taiwanese.
Aye.
That's right. And I met her. That's right, yeah, koea, yes. I met you of Papa, your Papa. Mighty man, e rangatira. Nō reire te iwi, tēnei a hau e mihi kawana ki a tātou katoa. Tēnā koutou, e tauana.
Kia ora. That's a nice way to wrap it up today. So I'd like to put my te paki. Who's our photographer?